Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I want to talk about head movement in the swing, and very specifically the idea that the head should stay completely still throughout the entire swing. This is something that's told to a lot of hitters that can cause a lot of flaws in swings. So I want to first start by talking about what we see in terms of head movement in the swings of high-level hitters. Now this is going to vary wildly from hitter to hitter based on the hitter's stance, their load, their stride. There's a lot of different factors. But there are going to be certain movements that we're going to see pretty much regardless of the style of hitter. So let's start with a hitter, pretty traditional stance. The first move that they're going to have is they're going to try to load their backside. There's going to be this rearward movement of the head. Now with that, most of the time, in order to really engage the muscles of that back hip, hitters are going to have that rearward movement and some downward movement. From here, hitters are going to shift their body weight forward, move their stride foot forward, and get into that really good launch position. Now with that forward movement, again, the head's going to move forward, there's usually a dropping of the head too. And that dropping of the head and centering of the head is going to be what allows hitters to get into a really good hinged posture to set that bat path. So if we look from that pitcher's perspective, most hitters are going to start slightly more upright, and then as they go forward, their hips are going to go back, their chest is going to come over home plate. But with that, the head's going to drop and that eye level is going to drop. So that's what we see pretty much across the board with hitters. Like I said, this is going to vary between hitter to hitter. So if we have a hitter like Cody Bellinger who's going to start with his feet very close together, there's going to be a more pronounced dropping of the head than we see with a hitter who starts with a wider base. And then even if we see hitters who start with a super wide base and go no stride, where they just pick up their heel and go, there's still going to be a backward, rearward movement of that head and that forward movement, usually accompanied by some sort of drop in order to set that good posture. So once a hitter's gotten into that really good launch position and that stride foot's landing on the ground, let's talk about what the head should do. This is going to be very pitch dependent, specifically the height of the pitch. So if a hitter lands and the pitch is, belt high or higher, that's where you're going to see that head stay pretty still, almost completely still throughout that rotation. And this is what's going to allow them to create that really good bat path. However, if the pitch is lower, what you're going to see with hitters is as they start to rotate, that head's going to drop even lower in order for them to get that bat to get underneath or on plane with that pitch and work uphill. Like I said, a lot of hitters are told to keep their head completely still throughout their entire swing. We see this show up in two different ways with hitters. This is really two ways that hitters will interpret this. Hitters will either start pretty much in that launch position. So they'll start with a wider base. They try to stay centered with their head. They might even get into that really good hinged posture. And then from here, they're going to completely eliminate any sort of load or stride mechanism in their swing. So they're just going to go from here and just simply rotate. Now this may allow them to create a really good bat path, but it's going to severely limit their power capabilities because a lot of the power that hitters generate comes from that loading and that striding and the force that we're able to put in the ground. The second thing that we see show up with hitters when they try to keep their head still is they end up in really bad postures and compromises their bat path. So hitters will try to keep their head from their stance. They're going to try to keep their head completely still and not drop their eye level. And hitters will take a stride. Their head stays completely still. They end up very upright. They can't get hinged. And it's going to cause a lot of those bat path issues that we see with hitters. Namely, that bat moves too flat through the zone. And it's going to create a lot of those weak pop-ups to the opposite field or those rollover ground balls to the pull side. So let's take a look at a couple examples of some high-level hitters and what their heads actually do in the swing to dispel this myth that the head should stay completely still throughout the swing. So let's take a look at Mookie Betts. These green lines that I've drawn here are going to represent the starting position of his head. And what we're going to notice is the first move, he's going to load into that back hip to engage those big, strong muscles of his lower body. And what we've noticed with these orange lines is his head is moved down and backwards. And from this position, he's going to shift forward. He's going to get into that really good launch position. What we notice by these yellow lines is his head has now dropped even further, and now his head's moved forward. So what we see, this is going to be pretty much across the board with high-level hitters. There's going to be a lot of head movement in order to get into that launch position and set that really strong, powerful, consistent swing. So let's take a look now at what a hitter is going to do after that stride foot's landed in the ground. So here's Mike Trout in his launch position. Gets a pitch a little bit lower than belt high. So he's going to have a slight drop of his head in order to set the plane of that bat to work uphill. Let's take a look at another hitter. Here's Pete Alonso. Again, the green line is going to represent where his head's going to start once that stride foot's in the ground. This is going to be a pitch that's down and away. So, like I said before, on lower pitches, you're going to see this from really good hitters. Their head's actually going to drop to allow that bat to get underneath or on plane with that pitch and work uphill. So as these three guys have demonstrated, really good hitters do move their head throughout their swing. And in order to create that really consistent bat path and to get the most power out of your swing, the head does need to move. So I hope this video helps clarify what I would consider one of the more misunderstood pieces of hitting mechanics.